Hello, everybody. Warm welcome to Curio Talks by Young Academy of India. Today with us, Dr. T.V. Venkateswaran. Dr. T.V. Venkateswaran is senior scientist in Vigyan Prasar, and he's basically, working in Vigyan Prasar for quite some time. Of course, the institute is called National Institute of Science Communication, which belongs to the Department of Science and Technology in New Delhi, based in New Delhi, one of the premier or prestigious Institute of Science Communication by the government of India. So he has been working as science communicator, writer, TV host, and SciComm writer, science communication writer for quite some time. And right now he is scientist AF in the Vigyan Prasad. So his research area includes science in pre-modern India, history of science communication, in particular Tamil region, science and media studies. And yes, so he is also involved with so many activities, including development of knowledge products related to SciComm and science education. So welcome to Dr. TV, and I'm really happy to have you with us here in our Career Talks.
Yeah.
So yes, along with us today, with me, we have Nithya. Nithya Kriti is with us for quite some time now. I think it's the third talk, the Curio Talk, isn't it, Nithya? Nithya is a co-moderator of today's session. She is a student doing her BSc Biotech last semester at Government Degree College in Hyderabad. Over to you, Nithya. Nithya, can you hear me? Yeah, it looks like there is some issue with Nithya. I think she's trying to join with another ID. Doesn't matter. So I will start up this show with one of the first question to you, Dr. TV.
Yeah.
What is your story like? Could you please share a little bit about yourself, like your family and your early childhood and so on?
Okay. I was brought up in Chennai. We were three brothers. And of course, there is a bit of a gap between me and my elder brother. About 8 years. So when we were small kids, of course, the gap between me and my younger brother was not that much. So in a sense that my elder brother was also kind of uh, uh, let's say giving both of us, me and my younger brother, a bit of let's say, I won't exactly call it as parenting, but let's say kind of adult supervision that was there in our time. As I think that most of our viewers today are going to be millennials, I want to say that I belong to this generation of 1980s. I was born in 60s, but of course, you talk about when you are kind of 20s, right? So basically 70s kids. That's a time of if you look at India, the emergency, there were lots of various things happening around you. Poverty was very striking. Even when you are living in a city, poverty was very striking. Um, it was a very different world if I think back my childhood. Uh, I studied in a school up to 5th standard in Tamil. My medium of language was Tamil. I switched to English medium in 6th standard. That was usually the kind of thing that happens. You start learning English only around that in those days. Most of the places, there were a few exceptions, but most of my friends were also kind of same background. Well, I enjoyed my childhood, I should say so. We had a lot of time to play, a lot of time to fight, a lot of time to go to each other's house. Walk in and out. And there were long summers where literally, you don't know when the day ended and the next day began. That was kind of childhood, if I can say so.
Yeah, very good. Yes, very glad that I mean, I also share many things with you. Like, I was also went to a Malayalam medium school, and yes, so that the same kind of childhood, the same kind of like village background that I do have it. Over to you, Nithya. I hope your audio and video technical problem is
Yes, sir.
resolved.
Yes, sir. I'm good now. Yeah.
Yeah.
We would like to know, like, who were your inspirations when you were young, and do you suggest any mentors or books that influenced you tremendously?
Okay, that's a very interesting question, and in fact,
Yeah.
many people who have talked a bit about my private life have asked that question, so I have also shared with them. So I'm going to start with one of my teacher, my maths teacher. His name is Shankaran. Uh, he came to our class for teaching maths and English. I mean, it's a very interesting combination. Many people may think that it's like geography, but
Yeah.
he was also very, I won't say English, but literature. A certain amount of interest in my literature also was kindled by him. Okay, so let me go back to him and his story. This story I have told umpteen number of times wherever people have asked my private life, as I said so. Okay, so I'm going to say this. Uh, See, it's around 9th standard, 10th standard in those days. In school, you start learning what you might call as formulas. Okay, and I'm sure all of us who have gone through school education know this formula: n into n plus 1 by 2. Yeah. So till then,
Yes, yes.
most of the teachers would tell you that the formula, write it on the blackboard and say that memorize it, and you'll have to reproduce it tomorrow. But this guy
True.
comes, the very first class, okay, the very first class of our year. This guy comes, the very first class, he starts by saying that I'm going to tell you a story. And imagine it's a math class. Okay,
Okay.
we are all stunned. So we thought that,
Yeah.
okay, this guy maybe want to while away time. That's why he is saying all this stuff. That's our usual, uh, you know,
Mindset. Yeah.
young people, we are all mischievous in those years, right? So he says that, okay, let me tell you a story about a guy called Gas. Okay. And Gas was also like a very young kid like you, much younger than you. And his teacher one day was feeling very sleepy, and the teacher wanted to sleep in the class. But then what do you do with the kids? So the teacher thought that, okay, let me give them one exercise. So what is the exercise that I can give which will keep the children engaged for a long time? So then the Goss teacher thought that, okay, let me ask the children to add from 1 to 100. Like 1 plus 2 is 3. So 1 plus 2 plus 3 is 6. Okay, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 is 10. Like that you add up to 100 and find out the answer. Okay, he gave the task, and then the teacher thought that, okay, these guys are going to take quite a bit of time. So let me sleep and then lie down on the bench. But then immediately one kid comes to the teacher and says, sir, I have solved the problem. And the teacher is Zab. He says that, are you sure? The kid says that, yes, I'm absolutely sure. That's a young Goss. And then the kid shows the answer is 5050. The teacher is Zab. Of course, the teacher doesn't know the answer at that point of time, or at least the story that I was told. The teacher is Zab. But then the teacher feels that there is something in this kid which makes him feel so confident to come and give this as an answer. So then he asked the Goss that, how did you find this answer? The Goss replies that, sir, it's very simple. Let me write 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. up to 100. Now let me write that in the descending order: 100, 99, 98, so on and so forth. Now on the top there is 1, and below that is 100. On top you have 2, below that is 99, and so on and so forth. And the last one is top is 100, bottom is 1. I add 100 plus 1 is 101. 99 plus 2 is 101. So all of them add to 101. And how many 101s are there? 100 101s are there. So it is 100 into 101 is that total. But I have taken it 2 times. I have to divide by 2. So that makes it n into n plus 1 by 2. That's what, that's a story, and that's how we explain that formula. We didn't have to memorize it. We didn't have to
I
memorize.
can see that you still remember the formula in a clear way.
Yeah, and I think most of us would remember just because we have memorized it. Okay,
Yeah, yeah,
but for the first time, it taught me that the formulas that you see in the maths are not some kind of magic. They come
yeah.
from a certain kind of reflection, some kind of thought,
Necessity,
and
yeah.
not it's not something that the magician takes out of the hat. Okay? That was that teacher's very, I mean, important. That actually literally made me start loving mathematics. Okay, I mean that's how I started loving mathematics. But I also want to add some bit more about that teacher. Okay, that's also I think very important because you asked me about why he, somebody was a big role model. I mean, imagine that you are in a 10th standard, then you are about 14, 15 in that age, teenage. And of course, in those
Yeah,
days, there was no co-education. There were only girls' school and boys' school. And quite obviously, you can imagine boys standing outside girls' school and, all those kind of stuff. Okay. Yeah. This guy, I mean, this teacher, there was a movie, Tamil movie in those days called Oru Thalai Ragam. I mean, some of the Tamil audience can perhaps relate to it. This movie was in those days, within quotes, what considered by the parents are not movie fit for young children. I mean, adolescents. Basically, that movie had characters who fall in love. I mean, it was like a college last day. That's a story. College last day, people are breaking up. I mean, that's basically that essential part of the story. And this teacher told us, a group of students, that I'm going to take you to this movie. Okay. I mean, it was so radical for us that a teacher tells us that I'm going to take you. And why? Because he was doing one small research. Basically, he was wanting to find out that children from which background are aspiring to do what. That is, when you are doing your 10th standard. I mean, I was the second batch in the plus two in Tamil Nadu. So around that time, what do they want to do? I mean, after 10th standard, do they want to continue plus two, or do they want to go to some professional courses? Do they want to leave the job? No, I mean, he was doing a survey with the students, and then the survey collection, he engaged us to categorize. Okay. And that too actually had a huge impact on me, perhaps also others who involved, because that really brought out that my thought process is very different from people's thought process. I mean, there were a different section, people coming from very poor background, people coming from maybe better off than me, each of them having a view. Otherwise, one lives in one's own cocoon, right? You think that your friends, your family, your circle is the reality. There is reality beyond it. That's something that really, I mean, I can keep on like this, many instances for him, but I suppose at some point we need to stop there and then go further. So I'll stop here. So it was a impact which was multivarious. That's what I just wanted to point out. I mean, that really had a huge impact on me, and I suppose also many of my friends, as can I can.
Yeah. Hope we could get such wonderful maths teachers in our lives too, so that maths wouldn't become a scariest subject for all of us.
Yeah, so Nitya's question has got the second part, that is there any books that you liked a lot? So can you just share some of your favorite books?
Yeah. So there were two books which particularly inspired me in that time. Okay, I mean, I mean, they were one of the very few books on science that I read beyond the school textbooks. Okay, I'm not talking about the school textbook, but beyond the school textbook. Of course, there were a lot of novels that inspired me, like Steinbeck's Grape of Wrath. I mean, I couldn't sleep after reading that for many days. Or Jack London. It opened up your, I mean, life, life in other places, those kinds of things are there. If you're talking about science, I mean, there are two books which particularly inspired me. And again, as I was pointing out, that we are all, I mean, at least I am 1970s kids. I mean, the access to books beyond your schools were also limited in those days. Mostly it was the books which were published in Soviet Union, which were affordable in those days and available in wide places. Two
Okay.
books that really inspired me, one was called as ABC of Quantum Mechanics. I mean, accidentally I came across it when I was in my +2, and then I read through it. It was very, very, very interesting, very engaging. I mean, they were using a lot of analogies, simile to make point certain important point. And second was another book called At the Crossroads. Okay, this book At the Crossroads was kind of taking stock of where was science, particularly the theoretical physics, at that point of time. What questions we have answered, what questions still exist. Because this was, in my opinion, the first book where I came to understand that science is not something that is over. You cannot talk science in past tense, but you have to talk science in present tense. Because otherwise, you are exposed to science as something, complete, packaged, gift
Yeah.
wrap, and then given to you in terms of school books or punji. Yeah. I mean, this is the first time it said that these are all questions we don't know answer. And then that made me feel interested in science problem. Otherwise, I mean, it was only technology question. Like, can you make a rocket which will take you to, I mean, that was the only challenge that seemed to remain. Rest are all solved. So these two books were very important in my life. In terms of even my interest in science, because one made me understand science, not just mug up. The other one taught me that there are still a lot of questions unanswered, though we know a lot. And then we need to keep our quest alive. That keeping the quest alive was the central point in that book called At the Crossroads.
Okay. Yeah, it's very interesting. And again, the coincidence that during my childhood days, my mother, she subscribed me a very interesting international magazine, which is called Misha,
Right.
Misha. I don't know how many of you know, you know it, Misha. Misha is also from former Soviet Union. And yeah, that is also very interesting that a lot of puzzles and a lot of columns and science communication. It's a mixed up, the Misha is a very general targeted audience is of course the kids really loved it. Those days, the reading the Mishayas. So now I would like to know. I mean, because you are now into the SciComm for quite some time, what is the scene like in Tamil Nadu, the science communication? In Kerala, I know it that we have an organization called Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad, and KSSP is very active with, I would say, rather proactive with the science communication. And during my childhood days too, I grew up with their magazines like Eureka and then Shastra Kerala. These two are really popular even today. Is there any similar kind of magazine, the science communication magazine, that especially the government school kids in Tamil medium, it's popular among these students in Tamil medium? Over to you.
So first thing, I worked in Trivandrum from 1996 to 2002. So I was also the city president for Trivandrum for KSSP for some time. And during that time, I was also active with Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad, and even now I interact with them. In 1987, many of us who were interested in taking science to people, along with the Department of Science and Technology, organized a very huge national-wide program called as Bharat Jan Vigyan Jata. I mean, this was like, I won't exactly say that translating the ideas of KSSP into rest of the India, that will be a bit too much. But KSSP was one of the important inspiration behind it. There were also others all over India who were wanting to communicate. So we all came together and then organized this big event. I was also part of it. So I actually traveled from Chennai to Bhopal for about a little more than 2 months in this program. On the way, we went to many villages, talked to ordinary people about science and so on. So in Tamil Nadu, similar to Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad, there is a very vibrant organization called Tamil Nadu Science Forum. It also brings out children's or young people's science magazine called as Tulir in Tamil. I also write in it, in fact. And then there is also a magazine or newsletter called as Siragu for slightly adult population about science policy and things of that kind. And then there is also a magazine for teachers, Virudu, where teacher experience, science teaching, these issues are discussed. Uh, It has about 30,000 plus membership in Tamil Nadu, and then the magazine Tulir is was having before COVID, of course, about 50,000 plus subscription. In addition to that, in the recent past, there has been also some effort by others. A popular daily newspaper called Dinamalar used to bring out a supplement, and then another Tamil newspaper started by the Hindu group called Tamil Disai. They also bring out a supplement for children with science content. I mean, of course, we are not talking only about science content, more of children's content, which will be science, general knowledge. I think you need a all-round development. You can't be very focused. I mean, that's my view. So there have been some effort in the recent past by some of these publications too in bringing out material in Tamil. But of course, the distance that we have to cross is long. If, for example, on artificial intelligence, if somebody wants to know something, is there a set of books for wide range of audience? I won't say no. I mean, so there are huge gaps there. I think many Indian languages we need to make that effort. If really we want to bring scientific temper in our society, access to good material is a very important work still pending, in my opinion.
Yeah, kudos to you, sir. That even at such a prestigious institute, at a premier position, and still you continue your your energy and your spirit on communicating in your mother tongue, in Tamil, for the benefit of the Tamil students. So that is really an appreciable trait that is completely missing, I would say, in many of the people in today's world. That of course, it's not that we are not really into the communication, but some of the people, so especially youngsters, I know they would like to actually transcribe the technicalities in English, and they think that it's of course a form of communication, which is indeed right. It is, English is perfect, but somehow, somewhere in the scene, this kind of mentality has come up in India, that if you speak or if you read, like I still read a lot of books in Malayalam, and like if you happen to see somebody reading a book in a local language versus a book in English, then the one who reads English book is like a step ahead. So that mentality, I think that that judgmentality, that I think we have to change it, isn't it? It's a time for us to change it. And now I would like to ask you one more question, that coming to the science communication, why did you choose this career? All the way from your history of science, and of course it's much related, philosophy of science and history of science. And then after all these years of choosing this career, do you consider that initial decision was rewarding and satisfying?
Well, my entry into science communication was kind of accident. It was not planned. It was not that while I was my school or college or any other occupation, I was actually thinking that I'll take science communication as a full-time activity. It all began because of my some of my friends. Okay, in my youth, when I was in my college and that kind of stuff. I mean, we had some friends who were coming from, let's say, not so well-to-do locations in the city, which most of us would like to call as slums. I mean, in English. Okay. So some of them said that, why don't you come there and give a talk? We are also interested. Young people in our slums will also be interested. I used to be very much interested in astronomy and things of that kind. I mean, that's how mostly science communicators start off with. And I was also interested. I was a very avid sky watcher. I have been a trainer for scouts, because scouts, one of the things that you have to train is night sky watching. I mean, finding directions and things of that kind. So I've done that, all those kinds of things also. So they said that, why don't you come and talk to us? So that's how I went into some of the slum areas in Chennai, and then we used to tie up a dhoti, okay, dhoti as a screen, and then we were able to get one slide projector. In those days, there was no computer, there was no LCD projection, okay, so you have to get a slide projector. Some of these medical colleges, these people will have. So one of them said that, okay, take it. And then you have to make the slides. That itself is a huge effort. I mean, it's not something easy to make. So we made, and then we prepared all these things, and then I came to this place. I was of the opinion that who is going to be interested? I mean, after all, they are poor. They would be more worried about their bread and butter. Why would they worry? But things changed completely when I started going to these places and talking to a lot of people. There is a huge thirst for knowledge, and if people are willing to give it in the language that they can understand, and then not engage in a, like you are in a pedestal and they are in the receiving end, but you know you are standing on the same street and then talking to them. There is a huge thirst for knowledge. That's something that I understood in that experience. That's how my interest in science communication came. And then when during this 87, when this opportunity for the Jatha came in, that I jumped in. I took leave from Indian Railways. I was working in Indian Railways in those days as a fuel controller. So I took leave and then became a member of the Jatha, and then went around different places. And then later in the Tamil Nadu Science Forum, they decided to start this magazine. So when the magazine was started, you needed somebody to look after it. So I said, okay, I'll resign the railway job. And then I took over that task of managing the magazine. That's how my interest went from a kind of spending some time in your life to mainly doing that as a part of your vocation. Okay, now I won't call it as a job, but something that I also enjoy, so it's as a vocation. And then later in Trivandrum, when the Center for Development of Imaging Technology wanted to institute a course for science and development communication. So I went there as a faculty. So I was there for quite some time before coming to Venkateswaran. Do I regret? No, certainly not. If there is a way you can rewind, or if there is an alternate universe with a time delay, perhaps I would do the same thing. Maybe I won't do some of the stupid mistakes. That's all. Like earlier, I used to give a talk where I would want to tell everything that I know. So sometimes my talk will go on for about 2.5 hours, 3 hours. I know now that maybe that's not the best way to do, right? You learn as you grow old. That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that in the chat box. A lot of comments are coming. I will be going to that chat box in a short while. I can see that some of the participants have met you earlier. Around Rahul is saying that I still remember that you came to Guwahati, Assam, and I forgot the exact year. You were taking auto to reach somewhere, and the biggest mistake was that I could not give you a call there itself. So he's regretting not to call you at that time. So yeah, over to Nithya. You can ask the next question.
Yes, sir, sure. So how did you get in Vignan Plus, sir, if that's a premier science communication institution? God.
Yeah. So basically, I was working in Trivandrum in CDIT, Center for Development of Imaging
Okay.
Technology, where we were running a course on science and development communication. So essentially training video producers to make science and development films. That's when the Vigyan Prasar was formed. Vigyan Prasar was formed in 89, but it started becoming active around 93. That's when around 2000, Vigyan Prasar was planning to expand. They were looking for people. As it's a government agency, they had an advertisement. So one of my friends saw that advertisement and said that maybe this is something that you might like. So I applied, and I'm here. That's it.
Short and sweet. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, very interesting that you are now in the Vigyan Prasar, and yeah.
Yeah.
So now my next question is that the science leadership. So one of the focus of our group, the Young Academy of India, is to inculcate some good the qualities of science leader. So if I ask you like what are the qualities or the traits of a good science leader, and do you have any role models when it comes to science leadership?
Yeah. Personally, I have, as many of them are alive. Generally, I prefer not to name. Okay. So that's basically because I think many of them also won't like hero worship. I'm sure of that. That's one of the reasons that I also consider them as a role model. Okay. So even if they come to know of it, they will only appreciate. So I'm sure of it. Okay. Most of them. So when I say role model, I'm going to give a set of role models, not one. Okay. One role model is a very young person. Now I think the person would be around late 30s. I came to know about this person about 10 years ago, when that person was actually pursuing his PhD in one of the premier institutions in the country. Again, I would prefer not to name. Okay. Uh, in a way, our life has crossed paths much earlier. One of the activity that I was also very passionately involved before coming to Vigan Prasar was during 90s, there was a major campaign in India called as literacy campaign. I mean, in Kerala, it was called as Sampurna Shakrada. In Tamil Nadu, it was called as Arivoli. I mean, there were different names, but around 90s, there was a huge campaign. This person comes from a Dalit community who traditionally used to work in cleaning human excreta. Okay, so neither his father nor mother were educated. Accidentally, that's around the time that the literacy campaign was on, and the mother joined. Father, of course, joined, but usually we found that in the literacy campaign, women took more interest in learning than men. So we found that I mean this woman was very interested. She started learning. She learned to read and write. Then she took an interest that my son should study, should get education, whatever happens. Even if we are going to go through a very bad situation, my kid should get education. She took huge effort. She, meaning of course, she took huge effort. Of course, the father also was supporting. They put the child in a school, and the child studied in a Tamil medium government school, and finally went to the premier institution in the country, did his PhD in a very important field. And while he was doing his PhD, there was offers from 3-4 European countries. I mean, he was not applying; they were calling him. Okay, so that's, I think, an important role model in our country. Yeah, in a way that science is a arena that goes beyond your identities. Science as an institution may still practice it. I mean, some of us might be, even you and me, might have still not completely, may not be gender sensitive. You might make mistake, I might have made mistake. Okay, it's there. I mean, as individuals, as system, it may be there. But as science as a field is beyond identity. We don't say that we accept Newton's law because that person was a Christian or a theist, etc., and so on, right? I mean, that doesn't come into the picture at all, right? I mean, I'm talking about science as a field. I also understand that science as an institution still needs to clear a lot, but as a field. So I think this is a very important role model that even if you're coming from not so well-to-do situation, trying circumstances, there is a hope that I think is a important role model even for me. So I'm not saying it's a role model for people who are watching. You ask my role model, so I'm taking it as my role model. Okay, because we all need to live, and if you have to live, we need to have hope, and these are the things that gives you hope. Okay, number one. Number two, there was a very important science administrator. Okay, so that administrator was thinking in terms of instituting a huge program which would benefit a lot of young people. Okay, in India, the moment you think something like this, immediately what comes to your mind is, oh, another one all India entrance exam. So this guy said that no, there should be no one more entrance exam, because that will only ensure that people from only a very small segment would be able to get benefit out of this. So we should find a way that this is inclusive. That is, people from different regions, people from different genders, people from different socio-economic background would be able to get benefit out of it. That showed that if you're going to look at science administration, you need to have certain social vision. Without that, we might be a very good scientist, but without a proper social vision in a country like India, we might actually spoil if you don't have a right kind of vision. So that, I think, is one important, again, role model, if I have to say, I would say. Third is women. Again, as I said, I won't name. I mean, who is a key person in a very important national level project. Okay, and this national level project is went through a huge public opposition. I mean, I won't say that public opposition, but some people's opposition. Okay, which got a lot more space in media than it should, in my opinion, deserve. Okay, I mean, if you are going to look at actual public opinion and divide media time, that opinion should not have got that much of time. But media, we know, likes controversies and then would like to take a certain kind of position because of sensationalization. But still, she did not go down. I mean, she went on, she argued, she stood for rationality, which again, most people was thinking that, oh, she is a woman, she is going to break down, but she did not. And not only that, all through this, I mean, she was very honest, meaning that she did not take shortcuts. She did not give a wrong opinion. She, even when some people said that if you say like this, people are going to twist it into this. She said, no, but this is the truth. I want to speak truth. Okay. And ultimately, whatever happens, I suppose if we are looking at building a good society, I think this is very important. We need to speak the truth to the people. With that, we should try to convince by giving false information. If we think that maybe short time, I mean, they may be fooled, but I think in the long term, it will affect us. I think she is also a very important role model for me in terms of fighting for what you believe in, but at the same time being humble. I mean, the fighting need not necessarily mean that you become obsessed. Okay, you're willing to still listen to others. That's there, but fight for your principle by being honest, not by being crooked, saying that hook or crook, I want to win.
Yeah, very good. And you have touched a lot of topics in this very brief time, like entitlement. Yes, of course, we take it for granted, the way that we brought up. So I might not have born in a underprivileged family, but yes. So whatever that, there is a lot of discussion going on with the meritocracy, that the governance should be based only upon merits. But again, that's completely biased. The way that I was educated, definitely my parents play a huge role in it, and of course their parents, and ultimately generational wealth transfer. So I think this all these topics really makes a big sense, especially you touched upon gender, and yes, all these things are really, really important, that somehow these youngsters are not actually indulging in this kind of long rates, or the core of the point. They are more or less into a superficial mentality. They don't even click to read a story in the social media. They just see it and then share it. That's how the fake news is spreading everywhere, isn't it? Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Over to you, Nithya, so you can pick up the next question.
Yes, sir. Thank you for sharing your views. So what do you think that what makes a good science communicator, and what suggestions would you like to give for MSc students, for especially who would like to begin their career in science communication?
If there are people who have come to my science communication workshops who are watching this program, please listen for next few minutes, because I'm going to repeat what I usually repeat in my science communication. To be a good science communicator, you have to be a frog. Did you hear me, Kritika?
Yes, sir, I did. Yeah.
You have to be a
Good frog.
frog.
Yeah, frog. Yeah.
Why frog? Let me tell you a small story. I suppose we have talked a lot. This is a good time to tell a story, right? Otherwise, our viewers will
Yeah.
go to sleep. Huh? So,
Excited to listen. Yeah.
so let's also do a good science communication. let's also bring in a light element in this discussion. Okay.
Sure,
So
sure.
this story is about a fish and a frog who were born on the same day. Do you
Okay.
remember this film where two kids are born, one girl, one boy, in a hospital, and then they cross in the hospital corridor, and then they are grown up in different places, and then they meet when they are very young people, and then fall in love. You have seen this movie? No. Okay.
No.
There in Tamil. I mean, it is there in Hindi remake and many other make. Okay. I mean, it's a very simple story. Many people. Okay. I mean, this fish and frog is also like that. They both were born on the same time. Okay. So they were friends right from the beginning. So every day morning, the frog will come, and frog, of course, will not be a frog, tadpole, you know, when it is born. Yeah.
Yeah, love. Yeah.
So the tadpole will come to the fish house and then wait outside for the fish to come out. So the
Okay.
fish father will be shouting at fish. You are going out with this guy. Nobody is going to marry you when you are going to become big, and you are wasting your time. Well, but they are friends, so they will run away. Okay. And whenever the frog goes back to the tadpole, goes back to the house, tadpole's mother would say, "You are hanging out with that fish. Your life is going to be spoiled." Yeah, but friends are friends. You know, I mean, you know how to manage when parents shout at you like this. I mean, still you get out and then run away, right? So
Yeah.
they were together from day to evening. I mean, they were running around the pond. I mean, swimming around the pond here and there. Time flies, and tadpole becomes frog.
Frog.
So one day, the frog was waiting, and the fish could not come. Maybe because there was no gas in the fish house, so the mother could not make breakfast. So the mother was saying that don't go now. Let me make the breakfast. After that, you can go out. So the frog was waiting, and then it was got bored, so it went up to the surface. So when it went to the surface, something it felt and it jumped out of the
Okay.
pond. Jumped out of the pond to where? To the land.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was the first experience. It was a new experience. The frog was very excited, but also scared, and then jumped back into the water, and then kept quiet. But
Oh.
if you're a very good friend, sometime you want to share your secrets with a friend, right? Otherwise, why friends are? Secrets cannot remain actually as secrets. So you have to tell to your friends. So this frog told this secret to the fish. So then one day, both the fish and frog decided that both of them will jump out of the water into the land. And you know what happens when both of them jump? What happens to the fish? Fish was gasping for air.
That.
Okay, it did not die. If it dies, then the story will end. So it cannot die. Okay. So the frog pulls back to the water. Now the fish and the frog enters into agreement. The agreement is that let the frog jump to the land, go around the land, see what is in the land, and write back letter to the frog. If you are a frog, what would you tell? Three things that you saw on the land. What would you tell? Can I take this liberty and ask you, Kritika?
Yeah. The
Please don't
environment.
feel embarrassed, please. Okay.
Yeah, not a problem. Yeah. So the land and the land environment, and it would be
Yeah, tell me
different from the
three
water.
sentences. Three sentences. What you saw in the land. What would you see in the land?
Okay, maybe trees, and if it humans, if other animals, land,
Very
and
okay. For
land.
example, all the words that you use, plants, trees, animals, will any of them make any sense to the fish?
No.
So now if the frog has to write a letter to the fish, then it has to say that there is something called bird, which I can see, which is swimming in something called air, like you swim in water. So basically, the frog has to write about the land in the words and language and idioms and phrases and images of the pond, right? If you have to
Hmm.
communicate, if it has to make any sense to a fish. So a
Yeah.
science communicator is a frog. You are exposed to the world of science, and then you need to communicate it to the world of everyday life of your audience. Okay, that I think is a key central challenge for any science communicator.
Amazing story.
This is a Chinese folk tale. That's
Okay.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, I really like that metaphor the analogy with the frog. And of course, as an amphibian, you're jumping in two fields. So as the communicator, right? So you are in the real science, of course, and then you are also jumping into the territories of the arts and of course the literature too. Unless your story is really compelling, if it doesn't have that the fine writing, then nobody is going to read it. So it's really interesting that I really like that analogy. Now coming to the science communication, there is an effect called Sagan effect, which is really common now. I mean, it's not now, over the last many decades, that a spurious mindset hardwired into many scientists. That popularity of the scientist is, among the general public, whatever the popularity of the scientist is, inversely proportional to his or her scientific accomplishment. Like the kind of like image of the real scientist is like Newton, who is never married and who writes, and every single thing is in a language highly indecipherable to the general public. So that kind of image set aside. So if you are really popular, like someone like a Carl Sagan, or Neil deGrasse Tyson, if you communicate a lot, then you are a mediocre scientist. That kind of mentality. So what is your opinion about this Sagan effect? Is it really common here? Of course, you're basically from the mathematics and then switch to the science communication. Yeah, over to you.
Yeah, I do see that there are a few people who think in that particular fashion. I mean, people, there are a few, I've also come across some academicians who think that people who are engaged in public communication as, charlatans, or they are debasing science, and, things like that. One of the commonest one of the commonest criticism that they make is that you are not accurate. So I need to clarify this accuracy here. I mean, because this is also a challenge that any science communicator will face. So this is the actual engagement that I had with one of the guy. Again, I would not name the guy, okay, because that's not the important. Guy is not the important. Things are the important, okay. So I asked the guy that suppose if you are going to write a 4th standard textbook, and then you are writing that Earth is going around sun, would you say that it is accurate or not? Of course, the guy was bit caught unaware. He said that it's accurate. I said, no. You have to say that Earth and Sun are going around the barycenter, the common center of gravity, not around Sun. Okay. So why do you stop there? You can say that actually Earth and Sun are not going around each other. You can say that there is something called as space-time curvature, and the Earth is going in a straight line in the space-time curvature. But can you really say that in a 4th standard textbook? Or because you cannot say this, would you say that you won't even introduce the concept like Earth is going around the sun in the 4th standard textbook? So accuracy is contextual. Error is a different thing. If I say that sun is going around Earth, it's error. It's a wrong information. Okay, but accuracy is it's a very contextual. Even today, for example, in COVID communication, when you say that antibodies are produced, is there only one antibody, or only one kind of antibody, or only one type of antibody? Don't antibody mature? So when they are maturing in between, what would you call them? I mean, there is much more complication if you are an immunologist. But the point is that because you are an immunologist and you know those things, it doesn't mean that you won't explain in a very simple way, not in the wrong way, but in a simple way, that this is how antibody antigen works, and a vaccine would help people like this. We would, right? So there are people who take offense to this. I know. Well, okay, they can live their life. I mean, this world is big. I mean, it has place for everyone. But I don't agree with them. That's it. Number one. Okay. Number two, I also know quite a lot of important scientists, not only world over, but also in India, who have also done good work in their own field. Okay, who are well recognized, well reputed in their own field, and also have communicated science to public in various ways. I mean, I have also seen quite a lot of people like that in Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad, for example. I've also seen quite a lot of people like that in Tamil Nadu Science Forum. I've also seen it various other places. Okay, let's look at, for example, JBS Haldane. I don't know how many of the young people will even know such a person. Okay, he is the founder of, let's say, mathematical genetics. I mean, many important areas. He is a very important guy in the history of science. But he wrote in a daily newspaper. In fact, while he was in England, he wrote in a newspaper for which was published for workers called Daily Workers. He had a column, weekly column, where he talked about when you go into coal mines, uh, these kind of things you would see. They are nothing but fossils. You know, I mean, he was introducing fossil to workers. Okay, and of course, he was against England going against war in the Middle East. So he rejected English citizenship and came to India and took Indian citizenship and lived in India. Okay, I mean, he died in India. He is one of the important founder of Indian Statistical Institute, if people need to know. Okay, so top ranking scientists have also written very good books. I mean, Stephen Jay Gould. I mean, look at his popular works. Look at his scientific research. I mean, uh, uh, it's not that, for example, your eminence in science would come in any way against writing popular work, or popular work will come in. And again, but I want to say this, but a lot of people today think that it is the duty of scientists to do science communication. I won't say so. That's, I think, a very wrong imposition. If the scientists are interested in communicating science, they should come forward and communicate science. If they are interested in reading literature, they should sit and read literature. If they are interested in teaching students, they should teach students. This honors that science communication has to be done by scientists. I'm not really into it. Of course, scientists do have social responsibility like others, but the social responsibility is a huge terrain. So you can choose what interests you, what you are capable of.
Yeah, very interesting. Your the answer is exciting. Your point of view is much appreciated, sir. And yeah, this particular science communication as an internal driver. And if you force someone who don't really want to communicate, then I don't think it will actually lead to something significant or substantial.
It will be a
And yeah,
terror to the
so many
audience.
of
It will be terrorizing the audience.
exactly. And yes, you said about this JBS Haldane. Yes, his friend, actually, the Mahinobis, right, in ISI Kolkata. And yes, so he had a very long relationship with India. And yes, Stephen Jay Gould, he's one of my favorite author, the Mismeasure of Man, and most of his books I've read. Fantastic author he is, isn't it? And here in India too, I can say that CNR Rao, Professor Rao has did a lot of work on communicating
Yeah.
the science to the public. And Yashpal, Professor Yashpal from TFR, though he
P.
became the
Balasubramaniam.
yes, he is amazing, isn't it? With the Doordarshan's turning point. And yes, over to Kriti. You can pick up the next question.
Yes, sir. So you very well know that, superstitions and pseudoscience are everywhere. So what are your thoughts on cultivating scientific thinking in today's youth? And what's your take on astrology also?
Uh, Very interesting point. Okay. First thing I want to say is that superstition does not necessarily immediately should not come to our mind that uneducated rural population.
Hmm.
I'll give two instances. Okay.
Okay.
About 2 decades ago, I mean, again, the millennials may not know, so I'll remind them that on one fine day, suddenly the Ganesha temples all over the country started drinking milk. Okay, so this was supposed to be a miracle that was happening. Okay, so
Yeah.
there were queues in front of Ganesha temple. People were standing with buckets of milk, and of course, they literally went and poured. They did not even check that whether it was actually drinking. So you go to all these temples and look at the crowd who are standing there. You would find that they are all middle class, educated, within quotes. Of course, that educated is past tense. Remember that, okay? It is not educating. It is not present continuous tense. So many of them maybe received school education or college education. After that, they stopped educating themselves. That's what I feel. So you saw them in a huge crowd. I have also interacted with, for example, domestic workers around that time. Women, single family women who were selling vegetables, keeping in on their head and then going around. They were all rejecting this. They were all saying that God won't do this kind of stuff. Come on, don't be silly. I mean, if the God wants milk, the God won't be waiting for you to feed, right? I mean, they were completely bogus. That
Yeah,
doesn't mean
makes
that they
sense.
don't have any superstition. What I meant to say is that our complete this neat package, rural people are superstitious, uneducated people are. That's what I wanted to break with this story. Second is eclipse. Okay?
Hmm.
Come solar eclipse, all the middle class colonies will be deserted. Nobody will even open the window. But you go to a rural area, happily people will be walking. They'll be even sitting and watching. Only in those places where the modern media has gone and created a havoc by saying that, oh, some mysterious rays are coming, right? So again, this rural versus urban divide is also false. First thing I want to say is this.
Yeah.
Second, our science education, I think, is not done adequately. How do we teach science? We teach science like saying that take that book, turn to the page number 34, start from the
Exactly.
third line, put a bracket, go up to seventh line, complete the bracket. That is the answer for question number 7.
True.
There are many sessions where I talk to young people and teachers about critical thinking. So I use an example. So I'll use the same example here. Okay, shape of Earth. What is the shape of Earth? Almost every one of us would say that it is round, spherical, spheroid. Whatever term that we use, we
Yeah.
all know what it means, right? In fact, a national survey says that about 78% in India give the correct answer for it, not flat. Okay, that's a very
Okay.
national survey says that India, the percentage is much higher than US. Okay, in US, still a lot of people believe that Earth is flat, not in India. Okay, that's a important stuff. But I ask actually the next question: how do you know that it is spherical or spheroid or round, whatever name that you want to use? We have only two answers. My teacher told me, or I read that in a school textbook.
Exactly.
But then, how did your teacher know about it? How did the writer of the textbook know about it? Okay, the teacher's teacher told. I mean, that's not an answer. We all know it, right? So that's a false answer. So let's go back and look at how, for example, in India, Aryabhatta found the shape of Earth for the very first time in India, not world over. World over, others have found even before Aryabhatta. That's a different matter. But I'm just picking up an example. Okay, Aryabhatta. So Aryabhatta was wanting to find the shape of Earth. But why did he want to find the shape of Earth? Why he did not believe whatever that people told before him? In those times, the uh, uh, literature was saying that Earth is flat. In fact, there is a statement in Ramayana where the Hanuman says the Earth is flat like the carpet in Ravan's palace. But Aryabhatta did not believe it because he said that there is no proof for it. There is no evidence for such a claim. It may be that, I don't know, but there is no evidence. So I want to find the evidence. So that's how Aryabhatta starts. So what does he do? He looks at lunar eclipse. How does a lunar eclipse happen? Earth's shadow falls on the lunar surface, right? On moon's face. That's how the lunar eclipse happens. Look at a lunar eclipse. What is the shape of the edge of Earth's shadow? It's an arc of a circle. Okay, as the eclipse progresses, you will find that the arc is becoming bigger and bigger. From that, you can actually compute what should be the size of the circle. The size of the circle is about 2.5 times the size of the moon. Okay, full moon. That's what Aryabhatta finds. And it doesn't change. It doesn't change from one eclipse to another eclipse. Okay, it doesn't change appreciably. There may be minor changes because always there will be measurement error. Within that, it doesn't change. So, what are all objects which can cast a circular shadow? So again, can I request Kritika to answer, just so that it can become a dialogue. Sorry, please don't get embarrassed or feel bad. Yeah. What are all objects which can cast?
Yeah, nothing much.
What are all the objects which can cast?
So the one which are in circular objects, so they usually reflect the same shadow.
What are they?
Other circular objects.
A tube like this can create a circular shadow.
Yeah.
Phone can create a circular shadow. A spherical
Yeah.
ball can create a circular shadow.
True. Yeah.
Even a circular disc can create a circular shadow.
Yes. Yeah.
So Aryabhata's research is not complete, but it's partly complete. Now you know that Earth cannot be in the shape of a rectangle.
Hmm.
You know that Earth cannot be in the shape of a brick.
Triangle. Yeah. Not.
So at this point of time, I can say that I don't know these things. I know that these are all wrong. Still, I don't know the correct answer. Science can live with it. Okay, then Aryabhata does the next experiment. What is the next experiment? He looks for eclipses which occur at different point of time from the place where he is observing. What does a different point of time mean? It means that the Earth is in a different orientation, right? So if you are facing the sun, then it is noon 12 o'clock. If you are opposite side of the sun, then it is night 12 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
So if at noon 12 o'clock, theoretically, let's say, for example, you are able to observe a lunar eclipse, that time too, if the shadow is arc, okay, that is irrespective of the orientation of the object. If the shadow is, okay, let's take a disk. When the disk is like this, you will get a circular shadow.
Yeah.
But if the disk is oriented like this, you won't get a circular shadow, right?
Yeah.
So now you need an object, whichever direction it is, it will give circular shadow. There is only one object. What is it? Sphere. That's how Aryabhatta comes to the conclusion that Earth should be a sphere. Okay. So what we fail in our science is evidence. From that evidence, how do we come to certain inferences? How far you can be very sure about that inferences?
Yes.
Okay. Can you bet your life on it? I mean, if one can use that word, right? This kind of critically understanding science is absent in our science largely. So basically, science, we read it like something to be memorized. So even when you go through science education for many years, we are really not literally educated to think critically.
Yes.
And because there is no context for rational debate in class. For example, on this, we can have a rational debate, right? If it was actually a classroom and I'm asking you, what are all the shapes which can create circular shadow? You might give one answer. Another student may give another answer.
Yeah.
That answer may differ from you.
Yes.
But still, both of you will rationally approach that answer. You won't emotionally approach that answer. I told you, so I should be correct. You won't do that, right? So you will also learn to engage in a rational discussion, which is essential if you want to have a democracy. What does democracy mean? Democracy means that we should be able to have rational discussion on a common decision that we want to take, and then rationally agree. For that, even for democracy to be really kicking alive, we need to bring this critical thinking, but it's absent. So that's why you see all around that almost all decisions are all opinions and stands. Not all. That's a sweeping statement. That many decisions, many opinions are emotional. I said so. Our group said so. My identity group said so. Why should it be true? We can't even ask that question, in public forum. Because our education system has completely failed in creating, nurturing critical thinking. So if you are asking about superstition, the prevalence of superstition also has a important, the education, the way we are education is there is also an important role to play. There is also another important point which we should not fail to see. Okay. Long back, people thought that sun is going around Earth. Right?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Even today, we talk about sun rising in the east and so on in our everyday colloquial world. It was not because they were fools that they were saying that. That's how the world appears to be.
Yes.
So there is always a distinction between appearance and reality. If the appearance and reality were same, there is no role for science. Imagine that. Think about it deeply. Okay, appearance and reality were same, then there is no role for science. So to distinguish between appearance and reality, yeah, critical thinking, which is what science is about. When I say science here, I'm not talking about only physics, biology, and so on. It's also about sociology. It's also about economics. Okay, all rational thinking processes where you are looking at evidences and deciding whether that evidence is able to give you certain reasonable conclusions. Okay, that requires you to distinguish between appearance and reality. So most people are living in appearances. So for them to get into reality, they would need certain opportunities to uh, go beyond their what they see around. Okay, so that's also one of the important reasons that many kinds of superstition exist. Let's take, for example, some superstitions in health. Okay, today, would I mean, there may be a very, very, very rare chance that a mother would say that I won't give medicine to my kid. I would perform some, let's say, superstitious act to cure my child, right? If there is opportunity for the mother to take the child to a hospital, the mother will take the child to the hospital. But if there is no opportunity for the mother to take the child to the hospital, there is no hospital, or the hospital does not have doctors, the hospital is not welcoming that family because of their, let's say, economic or other status. Of course, the mother would have to do something, right? Whatever the mother would be able to do within her confines.
Yes.
That may look superstitious to you and me, but that we should not look down upon.
Yeah.
The mistake is not in her, the mistake is in us. Okay, we as society has failed.
The way of thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, the opportunities that we are not providing for people. Right. So that's what my opinion about astrology. Short and simple. I want to tell you a quote from a very important thinker. Okay.
Sure.
Can
Yeah.
we also again do a bit of dialogue here? Are you fine with it?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah.
So I'll tell you the quote. You should guess who told that quote. Okay.
Hard.
No, no. Think about it. It's okay. Fun. It's a fun.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
So the quote goes something like this: if your friend suddenly starts believing in astrology,
Okay.
as a friend, the first thing that you should do is take him to a psychologist.
This is the first time I'm hearing this quote, so I'm not sure who
Well,
really. Yeah.
it's not the exact word, but that's the meaning of that person's quote. Okay, so that's fine.
Okay.
So you want a clue?
Why not? Yeah.
There is a memorial for this person in the southern end of India, in Kanyakumari.
Alex, sir, I need your help.
Some more help?
Vivekananda. Maybe I
Swami,
was also not aware of this quote.
Swami Vivekananda.
Swami Vivekananda, yes.
Not
Wow.
Vivekananda, Swami Vivekananda.
I never knew that he said like this.
Okay, but that's only part of the answer. That's not the answer. Just because
Okay.
Swami Vivekananda said does not mean that it should be true, right? Like just because Aryabhatta said it need not be true, just because I said it need not be true. What he says after that is very important. Okay, again, I am paraphrasing his words. Okay, I'm not
Yeah.
exactly quoting his word. Suppose assume that astrology is true. All your life events are being controlled by some planets elsewhere. Then there is no difference between you and the toy to which you give a key, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So there is no difference between you and the toy.
Dot.
Suppose I make a toy, where I give a key
Hmm.
and I give let's say a chaku, a knife to that toy, and that toy walks and then comes and kills you. Who has killed you, toy or me? So then,
Yeah.
if all my life events are controlled by planets, then whatever good or bad I do, pav or punya I do, then it doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the planets. It belongs to the time, right? So then why you punish me? Then there is nothing called pav, there is no punya. So that's why Vivekananda says that this belief is a very false belief. and he says that it is in our action good and bad exist. Okay.
Eye-opening statements.
Yeah. So this belief is will lead us ultimately to. I mean, in the short run, it may give you some solace. Somebody comes and tell you, no, 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 your thing says everything good. Few years it will be good. Okay, some solace. I know that those things do happen. Okay, but in the long run, it will lead us to a thought process in a social setting that we can do murder, because ultimately it is not my pav or punya. It is what is written by the grahas and so on, right? So that's a very, very false statement. That's number one. You asked, so I want to say a few more words about it. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, I want to say this in this program because many people, whenever I talk about astrology, they will say that, oh, you scientists are blind people. You don't, you say that you have to have experimentation, evidence. You just say something out of your, and they say that what experiments you have about astrology. So I'm going to talk about an experiment which was done in India by the famous astronomer called Narlikar with Narendra Dabolkar, another great thinker. Okay, what they did is they looked at husband and wife who are living together for 25 years without divorce. So can you assume that at least to a large extent, as husband and wife, they are all okay? So what they did is they collected the kundali of these two people and then saw for how many of them it matched and how many of them it did not match. Okay, so that's one part. They did not stop there. Remember, one of them is a astronomer, world famous astronomer, and the second is a very, he was a medical professional and a rationalist. They did other thing. They went to the local court, collected all the divorce petitions.
Okay.
Yeah. So now they also collected their kundali and saw, which essentially means that they did not. If they are going, if you're going for divorce and you got divorce, it means that you are not fitting as husband and wife. Okay. And this study told that none of this so-called conjoining stuff, like the kundali will have certain
Kundalis.
false. There is no connection. Okay, there is no correlation. You can significant correlation you can find. So people have done studies. Okay, just because you have not come across, don't assume that people have not done studies. I'm just
Yes.
one interesting study done in India. There are many studies which people have done all over the world.
It's time for a change.
Yeah, very interesting, Dr. TV. Yes, so you really highlighted throughout this talk about the importance of the critical thinking, so especially, those people who are gone to a nice school and lots of degrees on their point, doesn't mean that they are actually, well informed with the critical. You really highlighted with this question itself that, the superstition has nothing to do with the rural urban difference, and especially during the eclipse, that the rural people are a lot more scientifically concerned and scientifically informed, rather, and rational, rather than the urban vanity, that people spread the fake news and they have no idea about what the critical thinking is, isn't it? So it's really interesting that the kind of talks that you actually shared, and especially with that the quote by Swami Vivekananda, never I came across. That's very interesting, and also this particular an association between these two interesting things. The happy couple versus the divorced couple with the with the kundali. Very interesting.
Funny too.
You need the ideas, right? You really need ideas for this kind of association. And one of the common mistake that many people think about scientists is that scientists, you need to wear a lab coat, you need PhD degree, nothing like that, isn't it? So many of I know the people who are professors at premier research institutes in India are spreaders of fake news. While people with no PhD degree, they're doing fantastic science. Even the school kids can do curiosity-driven science, right? So that kind of science is what exactly fostered in this young academy, So very exciting. And all the viewers, if you have any questions to ask Dr. TV, please put that in your question on the the chat box. We will be definitely, we will be putting your we'll be picking your questions in today's session. It's already too late, but yeah, we will, I hope we can answer some of your questions. So before going, I really
Yes.
want to know a little bit about your experience in communicating in Tamil. And do you consider the impact is more prominent when you communicate in your mother tongue, like Tamil in your case?
Uh, it is for me certain kind of self-fulfilling. I mean, I feel fulfilled when I write something in Tamil because I can talk in the idiom of my readers. I can bring in beyond. I mean, it's like, for example, when you want to write a good science story, you need to also know beyond science. You know, a bit of literature, maybe beyond like popular culture. You know, I mean, then you make sense. That's what I have found. Maybe I'll give an example. Maybe I think it's a good idea to give an example of what one says. You know, otherwise it's very esoteric to talk about. In genetic studies, I mean, we use something called as twin studies, right? That is, you take twins because they share the same genes, right? I'm talking about identical twins, so they share the same genes. But sometimes they may be raised in different places, you know, because the mother has died or something like that, because they would have given as as often they would be raised in different places. So you then compare. Then you'll be able to find out the component of genetic impact on things, you know, or the social impact on things. Of course, this is not very simple like that, but in a very simple way, one can understand this, right? So, if when I was writing about this, there is a, MGR movie. I mean, Tamil Nadu, everyone knows MGR, right? Yeah. So MG Ramachandran was also the former chief minister of Tamil Nadu, one famous actor. So in that film, the MGR is a double action. So when MGR, that character was born, they were twins. Okay, but one kid is kidnapped at the time of birth by a thief and is being brought as a thief. But the other kid is growing up in the father's house. The father is a judge, so he is growing up in that kind of environment. So the film talks about whether your character comes from your birth or your upbringing. Okay, nature or nurture. You know, that thing. Like say, for example, here I am able to use the MGR film to communicate this idea. So my audience would feel very close to what I am saying. If one has to write this in English or in a very different audience, then this doesn't get communicated, right? So there is a one can say that there is, you don't feel fulfilled completely the way you feel fulfilled when you are able to bring in this kind of elements into your writing. That's one thing that I felt when I start writing about Tamil. Second is that for about few years now, I am doing a weekly column where the kids ask me question and then I have to answer them. Okay, so I would certainly say that what I learned from the question that the kids ask is enormous as compared to what I have to tell them. Okay, so I learn. Uh, I would put a question here. I mean, so that we can also think. I mean, we can also think about it, but plus also inspire with the kind of innovative question that kids ask. One of the questions is that we all talk about Swachh Bharat and then talk about safe disposal of human excreta. What about animal excreta? Are they okay if they are doing it in the open? Why the same problem is not there with animal excreta? Animal excreta to animal and animal excreta to humans. Okay, so there's something that you and I will not easily think, right? So out of box question, tangential thinking.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, yes, exactly. The kids are really champions of the curiosity. And somehow when the
Exactly.
same kids, when they grow, like kids will ask the questions like, why we yawn? Of course, we don't really have an exact answer, but we can, scientists are trying and philosophers for the last 2 million years, so you know it very well. And the kids do ask this kind of questions like lizards. Why do the lizards walk on the wall? What is so special? Do they have glue underneath their, the feet, which
Limbs.
the right, the legs? The answer is, of course, it's a weak electrostatic interactive force called Van der Waals force, which is not that easy to talk to the kids, but they do ask this kind of very interesting question. The same kids, when they grow up, they will ask you the question like, can I use immune booster for COVID-19? You see, things have completely changed, right? The kind of questions which the kids, when they grow up.
Can I
Yes.
make a point here, if you don't mind? Huh? What you said brings out certain thought in me. Can I take a minute, if you don't mind?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Yes.
Okay. See, look at any small kid. Okay. The moment the kid is able to move herself, the first thing the kid will show is the hand, finger. The intention is that the child is asking you a question. What is that? Okay. So you might say that, oh, it's a fan. You might say that, oh, it's a father. You might say that, oh, it's your didi. You introduce. That's the first question the kid asks. And kids keep on asking this question. If you're a small kid, you will know that's a kid's job. Okay. You will get tired, but the kids will keep on asking, what is this? What is this? What is this? Then the kids start, when the kid is slightly more articulate, the kid will start asking you the next question, which is the why question. Why should I drink milk? Why should I take bath? That's enough. We hit the roof, right? We say, shut up. I'm your father. I'm telling you do it. I'm your didi. I'm telling you do it. Right? So we
Yes. So
shut up the kid at that moment because we think the why question as something challenging our authority. Okay. So there are people who talk about it. Like, I heard it. This is not my thing. I heard it in one parenting discourse that the way we parent is also a very important stuff. For example, when a small child is crawling towards, let's say, a lamp, burning lamp, one thing is to say, stop, 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 don't do it. The other thing is to say that, oh, don't go near. If you go near, maybe take the child's hand and make it near. Say that it's hot. No, if you go further, it will become even hot. It will burn you. Don't do it. Okay. So basically, try to reason with the child. So the one is order based, the other is reason based. Okay. So they say that even the way we do parenting, it's important. Of course, when I say parenting, it also means that how the teacher-child when interaction is going to take place in school. All this matters,
yeah.
but this is also, I think, important. Sorry, maybe it's a digression, but when you asked that question, it came to mind. I thought I should tell it. That's all. Sorry.
Yeah, you made an excellent point about parenting. Yeah, so
Yes. Sir.
I'm an ardent listener of this Naked Scientist podcast from the Cambridge University and Wellcome Trust. So, Naked Scientist in recent episode, they were saying about the dog training. So you can just make a few like 3 buckets of the toys for the dogs, and then you can just circle through the toys. And then there was while the conversation came in, then the topic of parenting came. So same thing which we can use it for parenting as well. Instead of giving all the toys all together and then buying all the fresh ones and disposing of the old one, we can simply divide the toy collection into 3 buckets and use the first bucket for 1 month. And when they become so really lazy with that set of toy, then hide it and take the second back. So this behavioral sciences, what the ecologists and evolutionary biologists have been doing, ethologists, for example, we can take cues from it, right? For the parenting, quite unrelated field, and also the teaching, which you highlighted. Excellent point. Nithya, you can
Uh,
ask the next.
just
Yes.
one more point. When I was young, when I was about 22, 23, I went to a family. Because of my work, kind of stuff. They had 4 daughters. Okay. So all 6 of them were sitting and debating where we should go for dinner. They were planning to go out for dinner. It was not like the father dictating that this is where we are going to go, or the mother saying that this is where we are going to go. So they said that we have democracy in our house. Okay, right from young childhood, we discuss. We discuss and decide, not nobody imposes. Of Of course, the father mother may be doing some kind of nudging. I'm not saying that there'll be no role for father mother, but they were not making it in a sense that it's a order command that I mean, silencing your thought process, but by engaging with you. I think these are all something that we as a society need to learn more if when we are progressing this way, I suppose so. Right? Yeah.
Very true.
Exactly. So when you were saying about that particular comment, I was just thinking like a book which I recently read. It's by the Nassim Nicholas Taleb, and then he was saying like a donkey. Donkey is highly confused. A confused donkey
Yeah.
that he is very hungry and very thirsty. So what kind of decision? So should I drink water first or should I drink? Should I eat? So it's completely so unless there is a kind of a chance event that you so at some point of time you have to trust your intuition, right? So emotions do matter. Yeah, so but over trusting your emotion is it's a sure way to go ovary, right? Your life would become completely devastated if you completely trust on your intuition. Over to Nithya. Yeah, you can pick up a question from the chat box maybe.
Yes, sir. Yeah, sure. So we have a question from Mohammed Singh here. So he's asking, sir, could you please tell us about Eureka show, how this happened and your experience, how you become a TV science communicator?
Okay, that's actually a very accidental, again, one of the accidental, let's say, sweet event that took place. The Rajya Sabha television, that time there was a CEO called Gurdeep Sapal. So he called some of us who were doing science communication and so on. And he said that I want to provide television time in Rajya Sabha for science. So we have decided that at least every week we want to have 2 hours of science program. He said that let's have ideas. So a lot of people gave different ideas. For quite long time, I have been thinking about one aspect, which is like in India, which I feel as a gap, is that we talk about, for example, ISRO. We talk about, for example, atomic energy. Well, of course, DRDO, when it is related to missile and so on. Important. They deserve the attention they receive. I mean, I have nothing against it. But then there are also a lot of very interesting work taking place in various Indian institutions, universities, laboratories. It's also important that we talk about it. Okay, again, one question. Now, I'll do it to Felix, not you, so don't get embarrassed. When did you last eat bindi, lady's finger?
Could you please repeat? When did
When
I?
did you last eat lady's finger, bindi?
Lady's finger, 3 days back I cooked.
Most likely, even without your knowing, there is an institute in Varanasi called Vegetable Institute, Indian Institute of Vegetable Cultivation. Their unseen hand is there in your bindi, because almost 80% of lady's finger that is grown in India comes from that technology. It's there in our dinner table.
Okay.
Okay. So, but do we know about it? Yeah. So that's how I came to this idea that we need to project science happening in India. So one way to go about is talk to one Indian scientist, talk about that person, how the person became interested in science, or how that person stumbled into science. There are many ways people came into it. And what did they do in their, let's say, 20, 30 years of career? What do they think are important contribution to science? Okay. Some of them are, of course, science leaders. So we were talking about what is their plan or science policy. So some of them are also science policy question. That's how this idea of Eureka came in. Now, with the change, I mean, it's not happening in the recent past, but a different kind of program soon will come in television.
Okay, very interesting. So can you briefly tell us what exactly you do at Vigyan Prasar, and what are the opportunities for the youngsters in your institute?
See, Vigyan Prasar is an institution. So we have about 12 scientists. So we have certain tasks, like for example, we run a program called India Science TV. So just Google India Science. It's a OTT platform TV. So we produce a lot of programs on contemporary science, science in India, and issues which are surrounding us. So that's one area. Second is that if you go to our website, you will find monthly magazines in many languages: Tamil, Urdu, Bengali, okay, Hindi, English, called Dream 2047. So we produce materials which can be used as resource material. They are not directly for public in that sense, but if you are a school teacher or somebody who wants to communicate, so we aggregate content and provide there which you can use. I mean, of course, directly people can also read it. It's not like a ban on it.
Yeah.
I'm saying that it's a resource. We produce radio programs in 19 Indian languages, and every week in this 19 Indian languages, our radio programs are coming, which is reaching a large section of hinterland, rural areas, and people are listening to it. It's on
Great.
various topics. Currently, we are talking about artificial intelligence. Current serial is on artificial intelligence. Then we do have a lot of programs like training to teachers on innovative teaching. Uh, we organize a program called Zero Shadow Day, but of course, this can be largely only in the southern part of India, where the Zero Shadow Day is. There are many aspects like this. For young people, let me say that most of our programs, I mean, we advertise in our website. So you can apply. Okay, that's number one. Number two, very soon, this is June, right? So by end of July, we'll be putting up an advertisement in our website for a few young people who would like to take up internship on science news writing. If you want to learn writing science news, it will be a 3-month course. I mean, it will be online, of course. I mean, everyday interaction with the practicum, etc. So, if you are interested, you are welcome. But you have to have at least a post graduation or PhD or postdoc. We'll be advertising it very soon.
So we have many greetings and wishes for you, sir. So Amita Bhatti says that well appreciated, sir. Your first role model is younger than you, shows that you're down to earth, and also that thing that about the life and struggle of depressed community. My best wishes to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, many greetings again. That's a beautiful story that describes the life of a science communicator. Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, it's really interesting session, sir, and I really enjoyed that this session, which really went beyond the schedule by more than half an hour. I can see that. And before going, I would like to ask you, do you have any key message to the young scientists of the country who are the main viewers of our program? Do you have
Yeah.
any one key message?
Okay, number one, have hope. Don't lose hope. Okay. So if you have to have hope, then you have to have dream. Only if you have dream, then you will have hope. So that's number one. So have a dream, not one dream, many dreams. Doesn't matter. Okay. So and next, don't worry too much about whether you are succeeding or not, because succeeding after 10 years, when you go back and sit and watch, I mean, what you thought was succeeding, you no longer feel succeeding. For example, you thought something as succeeding when you were studying your LKG, UKG. That's not what you think succeeding today, right? I mean, similarly, when you are 10 years away from today, you are not so forget about it. Did you make effort? That's a question. And did you enjoy that moment? That's a question. That's the only two questions that you ask. You will be happy. Number one. Number two, one thing that I think this pandemic has taught us, which I think I want to underline, is that we can be happy only when others are happy. We can be safe only when others are safe. Okay. So it's important that you also feel for others, you also be there for others, and that's what will actually give you a hold on life.
Yeah, thanks a lot for this fantastic, the message, the take home
Yes.
message to help each other. And yeah, so it's really interesting to have the dream and hope Absolutely fantastic. I really enjoyed this session with you, sir. And yeah, it's
Exactly.
really interesting. And please, welcome aboard to the Young Academy of India. So yeah, so I will let you know. So who would like to work with you, and
Great.
the Mentex internship is open now. And yes, so I really enjoyed the session, especially your metaphorical usage, and the little bit of the story. I really enjoyed it. And you asked a question to Nithya, and then at that time I was just thinking about, like, I also heard a kind of similar, story. It's about color. And now let me ask you the same question, because you asked both of us some, puzzles. So it's my turn now to ask you.
Yeah, sure.
How will you explain a blind man the color? For example, what is green? Please explain.
Yeah. Okay. For some time, I was a reader for blind. When I was in my college days, I used to go to a library where people who are visually challenged will come. They are all doing their graduation and post graduation, so they need to be read books. So my answer is from that experience. Okay,
Very interesting.
they can feel the color. They feel it as some kind of a difference in temperature. So they feel the color.
Very interesting. Yeah, color temperature is it's an option in Adobe Photoshop too. So the
Yeah.
higher the color and lower the color, and of course in the astronomy, right? So the stars, the blue
Hmm.
stars are younger comparing with the red giants, isn't it? So
Yeah.
yeah, everything is kind of interconnected. I really enjoyed this session. Do you have any
Me.
final words, Kriti?
I really love this session, sir. I'm very much sure that the next time I hear the word frog, this story would come into my mind. And I really fell in love with science communication today. Very glad to be part of the session today.
Yeah,
Thank you. I
thank
mean, I
you.
also enjoyed this session. I mean, it was very interesting
Yeah.
and a lot of very interesting questions also. So some thoughts
And
I.
interactive. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you all for this session.
Yeah, thank you everybody, and please take care of yourself. And if you can, please take care of someone else too. And until next time, the Curio Talk will be in the next Sunday. So
Sunday.
please tune in and please take care and goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Take care.